Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this is part 2 of a podcast featuring a panel of dynamite educators. Maria A. Ellis, Jasmine Fripp, Dr. Chantae Pittman, and Kanisha Howard. If you haven't listened to part 1 in this episode, pause and go back. It was last week's episode. You'll get to know the lovely ladies of the panel, where they're coming from, their teaching experiences, and then we dive into some really tough and interesting questions that all of us as music educators and leaders in our community need to be thinking about before we kick off this next season or school year or whatever you call it. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at the Kinnison Choral Company. Now's a great time to check out their calculator, which helps you kind of divvy up time for everything you need to do, especially creating fun and community and all the great things that we talk about in this episode. I really can't wait for you to hear part 2 in this What Would You Do series. Today on the Music Ed Matters podcast, you are about to hear part 2 of our What Would You Do panel featuring Maria A. Ellis, Jasmine Fripp, Dr. Chantae Pittman, and Kanisha Howard. Hello again, ladies. I'm so glad to have you back. Last episode, we talked about some really deep and important topics. So if you're listening and you haven't listened to that one, go listen. We're going to kick this one off with a really easy question. A student continues to act out, and an administrator walks in the room to do an observation. What would you do?
I know this kid. I really get to know my children. And so I know whatever was going on, we had to talk in private, but he didn't know how to say that. It's about second grade. And trying to get him to be my helper. He could not focus enough to be my helper. And then he started to get frustrated because he couldn't be my helper. And he got frustrated because he wasn't doing what I was asking, so he was like upset with himself. And so it just kept, sort of spiraling. So what happened? I decided, I think it's time for a dance break. And change up in the lesson, he doesn't really know what's going on. It just looks like a bunch of students went from hopping on the floor, hollering frog for the quarter note, to doing a dance. So I turned on a folk dance that they all love to do. It was one of the very first partner songs that this particular class was able to do without getting upset with each other. So I turned it on, the room's running itself, and he and I have a conversation about my dance. And I learned what was going on. We talked about some techniques we could do to channel that energy into something good. And when he calmed down, he was able to join the class. And the observation went. So that was just from my experience. I guess if I had to give bullet points, you recognize that there's something going on. 1. 2, do all of the little things in class to try to see if you can diffuse the issue. Try to make them the leader, see if they can, hey, can you take a note to Miss Myers for me? Get them to have a walk, because walking is good. It's a good way to channel that energy. Stop the whole class and you do 5 jumping jacks or something. Kids love to jump. And if those things aren't working, then switch over to something that your class knows how to do, that you have taught, so that your class can run itself for a moment and you can get a second with that child without it being so detrimental to the lesson that admin knows that something is kind of going on.
That's a tough one. I love you. You distracted, you diverted attention, you took care of the student first, and you still demonstrated that you had a plan in action, and it was a student-centric plan. Awesome. Oh, Jasmine, go for it.
I just want to, she basically answered what to do in a moment, but some things that you may want to do to get ahead of disciplinary issues within your classroom. 1, if you manage a classroom, you won't really have to enforce discipline. So if you have your students create the norms and basically have them explain what respect looks like to you and your peers, at the beginning of the year, if you get ahead of that, a lot of your disciplinary actions won't really happen as often. That's when you'll see, like, you'll go into conferences and they'll be like, such and such has been acting up in my class. And you're like, not in mine, because we don't have those. I've had that happen one too many times, and I'm just looking like, they're the sweetest kid ever. But that also happens with you building that joy and building those relationships. That's another reason why it's so important. I also want to encourage you all to, one, look at, and I'm specifically thinking about my charter school folks. A lot of the systems in place are very outdated. And a lot of it, I hate to be that person, but I will be. There's a lot of white supremacy in there. Like, really take a look at the way your school disciplines. Like, if they're talking the whole grid, if they're talking demerits and all that kind of stuff, like, really look at that. And there are some resources out there that will, and I can provide you with some, Doc, that really show how this can be harmful, especially to Black and Brown kids. And y'all, last but not least, we are coming out of a pandemic. We've just come out of a school year like none other. The same grace, the same passion, the same compassion that we had for our students during this year. Keep that same energy. Keep that same, I think Bettina Love said it best. Like, when this pandemic hit, we were so gracious with standardized testing and, like, being way more understanding of what kids were going through. Like, y'all, keep that same energy and give these kids some grace. Like, it's going to be tough for these kids getting, like, your kids are going to be chatterboxes when they get back to school. They're going to talk. They have not socialized, like, for real socialized with masks off and proximity in like a year and some change. Like, give these babies grace. As a matter of fact, go ahead and plan to have some kind of social at the beginning of the school year to nip that in the bud, like, figure out something, but definitely keep that same compassion, keep that same energy that you had all last year when we were virtual, hybrid, in-person learning, the whole nine.
I love this. These are great. An exact example and then a whole bunch of tips to get you there. So we talked about admin. We've talked about crazy behavior. Are you ready for a tougher question? A white parent states that teaching diversity in your classroom is indoctrination and is furthering division. They also don't like that you're highlighting Black composers during Black History Month.
You ready?
What do you do? Oh, I'm stoked for this one.
All right. When I received my degree, I was degreed as a music educator. It is my job to educate you on all forms of music. If I only teach one form of music, I am providing your child a very disservice, as they will not be well-rounded in music. You would not tell the math teacher to only teach addition. You would not tell the science teacher to only teach about one form of water. You would want them to teach about all the different forms of water. So if you would not handle any other profession or form or subject like that, then you will not do music like that. I teach all genres of music. I don't just teach Black music. I teach Black music all year round. I teach Asian music all year round. I teach all different genres of music all year round because my degree is in education, and I must provide your child with a proper education, or I am not doing my job. And surely your tax dollars want me to provide your child with the best education possible, right? Therefore, I must teach the subject as it is. And if you'd like to have any other questions, please give me a call and we can discuss it further. But it's our job to educate. That's what we do. We educate. And education is not all pretty. Think about our own lives. Every aspect in your life is not pretty, but it is a part of your life. And teaching about Black music is the foundation of this country. So if I don't teach anything Black, then the majority of the stuff that you want me to teach, I can't teach you. I can't teach country. I can't teach rock and roll. I can't teach anything else that's predominantly looked at as being white, as the majority of it started off in Black culture. And that's what, I've had I had a friend who called me about that, because the parents was like, I don't understand why you have to teach Black history. And I told her, I said, you're an educator. That's what we do. So we can't just teach the kids. That's not fair to them. I'm not indoctrinating, your student by telling them about the enslaved people. That's what happened. That's part of our history. So we have to talk about it. And I'm not saying that all these people were bad and all the people. Not one time when I talk about slavery do I ever say all white people are bad. I don't even teach the subject like that. I never even bring the color into it. Now, if someone asked me about it, then we have to discuss it at that time, but I don't even teach like that. Why? Because I have white students in my classroom and we're a family. So I'm never going to do anything to single out any one of my kids and make them feel uncomfortable in my class. So that's my response. I got really excited about that because Black history is very important to me. And it would hurt my feelings if somebody asked me not to teach.
Mm-hmm. Go, Dr. Pittman.
So everything that Maria said, my job is to follow the curriculum, right? Okay. I was like, so, Maria hitting the thing. She's teaching a wide and varied, diverse, music repertoire. She's also relating her music to historical curriculum. So we're getting cross-curricular connections happening here. Let us be educators and do our jobs, because, like anything, as she said, you wouldn't ask a math teacher to do that. You wouldn't ask a science teacher to do that. So please do not ask me to do that and not be true to the music and the cultures that we have and the wide array of music that all of our students enjoy. That would be ridiculous. And I would be like, Cece, my fine arts administrator, okay, can you handle this? Because it's above my pay grade. It's above my pay grade.
Anything else you guys want to add to this one?
I also want to say, because I know that a lot of people have been questioning, okay, how am I going to go about this, especially with the ban on critical race theory? Y'all, if you really look into the laws, it's not preventing us from teaching about race. It's really not doing much of anything, especially on the K-12 spectrum. And just because we teach about Black history doesn't mean we're teaching you how to hate white people. Y'all, there were white abolitionists, there were white freedom writers, there are white folks in music who are down for the cause. You got Rick Rubin, you got your Jimmy Ivy. There's so many white musicians who worked so well to make sure that not only Black music flourished, but Black people received the credit that they deserved. And we're not going to sit here and teach your kids, oh, you need to hate white people because X, Y, and Z. Why do people think that when we teach about Black history or Black music, we're always going to talk about the oppression within Black music or the harm that white people did within Black music? No, we don't. We want all of our kids to be seen as beautiful within our classroom. That means empowering Black kids, empowering Indigenous, Asian, brown kids. And that also means showing white kids how beautiful they are. That's what we do as educators. Once again, coming back to joy. We are there to bring joy to the classroom, and that requires that everybody, including Black kids, can see themselves as beautiful.
I love how you said that, be seen. Sorry, Maria. I'm like, I want everyone to be seen.
I just want to add another part to that. Personally, as an educator, when I teach Black music, I teach it as America's music. We are Americans. It is my job to make sure that the children of America, that they know America's music. And in America's music, there's so many different genres inside of America's music. So I can't just teach the Black music. I have to teach the music of the indigenous people, the Hispanic people, all of the different cultures, because all of those cultures make up America. That's who we are. My second point is, as a Black person, I don't want to sit and talk about slavery. That is never something I want to talk about. I never sit around and say, let me teach the kids about slavery. I don't want to talk about that. That's a very dark part of my past that does not give me joy. So I'm never going that route. And I think educators need to, or not just educators, but people in general, Black people for the most part, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about civil rights. We don't want to talk about that. I'll tell you about the joy that's in music. I can tell you why I wake up every morning singing and smiling. I can tell you about why this music fills me up, and when I'm feeling bad, it makes me feel good. And when I'm feeling good, it makes me feel even better. I can tell you how I was in a place where mentally I didn't feel right, and I put this song on and instantly it changed my mood. I can tell you about that. That's the power of music. That's the universal language that we speak of. We ain't finna sit around and talk about no slavery. Nobody want to talk about that. None of us do. Period.
So what are your favorite things to teach, Dr. Pittman? What are your favorite things to teach during, like, Black History Month? Let's, like, debunk that whole idea and make it an all the time, all year thing. But hit it, Dr. Pittman. You unmuted.
Yeah, so I teach the less common musicians and artists that they have. You always get the spiritual. But we start talking, I love history. If y'all know me, I'm always got my head in a book. But you know, that's where that's really where my lane is with history and music, and it combines together, of course, the class that we all dreaded to take. But but American music history is just so amazing. Yes, it's just so amazing. And getting the kids to realize how just amazing how those enslaved Africans came over, and they brought the banjo. Yes, it came from Africa. And how, you know, because of, you know, being sharecroppers on these lands in Appalachia, that's where, you know, the Appalachian country twang came from. And it's just crazy, you know, how much they don't know. And then also relating that to world music and how much African American music has influenced outside K-pop. Come on. I'm like, this is just a Korean version of the Backstreet Boys. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So you start to realize, and then you start realizing how empowering that is to your students of color, and not just in Black History Month, but across all of the different months, like Hispanic Heritage Month, you know, and Asian and Pacific Islanders, you know, Recognition Month. Like, there's literally a way that if you've never dove into world music and getting world music into your curriculum, there's an easy way to dip your toe in that if that's not something that you're comfortable with. But you have to start, you know, opening your own horizons. As a teacher, you should be listening to this stuff too. You should be listening to what your kids listen to. It might not be what you would like to, but if you want them to go with you, you're going to have to give them a little too. And so, you know, there's always that back and forth, but we should never just try to compartmentalize Black history or Black music into just 1 month. First of all, 28 days is not that much, 29 on a leap year. And what we've done in America, Black American music, in the time that we've been here has just been remarkable. And clearly it's been a mark on a lot of other things. And so we have to start digging deeper and digging past that whole, I'm gonna teach this spiritual during the month of February, and then I don't have to touch anything of that nature for the rest of the year. That's dumb. And then you're doing your kids a disservice. So, I mean, child.
And they don't want to sing that.
They don't.
I want to sing those spirituals. We don't want to sing the spiritual. Pick something else. We don't want to sing that. Pick something else. Okay, sorry.
Say it again for the one. I think the ones in the back might have got it that time. You don't want to sing the spiritual. Got it.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, there's more than just the spiritual.
It is.
Look, if you have not, seen the research of Dr. Marcus Garrett, he provides a whole plethora.
I was just thinking that
idiomatic music that was composed by African American composers, and arrangers, and I'm just like,
he was a super early episode on the pod. Like, you can go way back. He was one of the early episodes on the podcast, and just we hardly touched the tip of the iceberg with that.
Yeah,
it's
amazing. Absolutely. And representation is paramount. Again, against all cultures, all genders, representation is paramount. And if your kids don't feel seen in the music that you're performing, you're not going to get any buy-in. The kids ain't going to trust you. What relationship? What choral sound? What choral, ensemble are you going to get when they don't trust you and when they don't buy in? So, ooh, child.
Right. And then I've had this question asked me so many times: how do I recruit Black kids? One, you just need to recruit because you don't know who knows who in your choir. And two, if you don't have your diverse anti-racist curriculum in place and all you want to sing is Negro spirituals in the month of February, that one time during the Black History Month concert, and you sitting there wondering why Black kids don't want to join your choir, make that make sense. And then on top of everything, I really want to encourage people to look outside of music for diversifying their curriculum. I know me personally, I have created this thing called Music and Munchies. And it came about because I planned out my entire first quarter last year. And then my admin was like, oh, by the way, you still have to teach one more class. And I was like, okay, we're just going to cook. And at first I was just playing, and then it turned into something serious. I was like, you know what? We're going to learn how to make elotes because it was Latinx Heritage Month. And like anybody who cooks, we typically listen to music while we're doing that. So we're going to listen to music, and I'm going to tell the kids about different historical facts about either the music or the artist or the food that we're looking into. Y'all don't all that's so many things. It's interdisciplinary. And on top of that, it's a bonding experience for your kids. I've done that with not only my kids, I provided that opportunity for other schools where they were like, we don't really know much about Black history. Can you replicate the Music and Munchies class that you held for us in February? And they learned about not only Black music in America, but we went over to Africa. We started with traditional African music. We learned about Afro pop. I've had a ramen cooking class as well, where we brought in a special guest, once again, Dorita Seth, and we learned about Asian culture, and we learned about K-pop. Let me tell you something. Black kids, brown kids, they love them some Asian culture. Like the animes, the K-pop, the K-drama, the J-pop, the V-pop, all kind of pops. And they had no idea their connection to Asian culture. Like, there's a reason why Black kids are always eating ramen noodles and they don't even realize it. There's a reason why the chicken is alike. Okay. So I encourage you to look outside of just the standard choral literature. And at this point, there's so many resources out there. There are so many educators like the ones on these panels that can offer you these resources. If your last resort, your only resort is Negro spirituals, then you, my friend, are being a lazy music educator.
But let's talk about that, because we all four of us just said we don't want to sing Negro spirituals. So let's talk about why. For me, that's a reminder of a bad part of our past.
It's traumatizing.
It is very traumatizing. And every time you say, let's sing Black music, if you keep going back to the part of me that hurts, you're deepening that wound. And there's so much other music that you can choose. That's why I say I don't want to sing a Negro spiritual. I remember in college, we were working on a piece, and the first line of the piece, it says, "Mama's on the auction block, many thousands gone." And I remember taking the piece, and my professor and I are very cool, but I remember like being like extra dramatic for effect and throwing it on the floor and saying, "I don't want to sing this." And he was like, "Really?" I said, "That could have been my mama. I don't want to think about my mama being on the auction block." That, as Jasmine pointed out earlier, that don't bring me joy. And we don't do that for other people. Are there millions of songs about the Holocaust? Are there any songs about white kids shooting up schools? No, those songs don't exist. So why do we keep going back to the songs of people getting whooped or beaten or being enslaved? Like, I don't want to sing that. Now, don't get me wrong. Give me an Elijah Rock or Joshua Fit the Battle. I can go with that. Let's go. But that can't be the go-to every time. If you want to do music for Black History Month, you can do barbershop music because that's Black history. You can do, of course, gospel, that's Black history. You can do rock and roll, that's Black history. You can talk about all the opera singers who sing opera music, that's Black history. You could talk about the classical composers who composed symphonies and oratorios and all that kind of stuff. Talk about them, that's Black history. Do not leave us as just slaves or civil rights. We're more than that. So make sure that your children know we're more than that. All kids, I don't care if you got a Black kid in your class, the white kids need to know we're more than that. We're more than just enslaved people or people who are being discriminated against. Kings and queens. That's who we are. We're people who bounce back no matter what you throw at us. We keep coming back even better. That's who we are. The fabric of our music is so thick in this country. That's who we are. And that's what you should teach for Black history. And if you don't know how to do that, then please take my class in February that I'll be offering right before Black History Month, and I'll teach you. There you go, plug.
I hope you guys hear from so many people. I know that there are these are questions that we talk about that you're giving so many great answers to. I want to close up with one final question. Do you guys have anything you want to say before I ask the final question? It's your first day. Either your first day teaching, your first day back after COVID, your first rehearsal, it's your first something. What do you do?
Build relationships and joy and give the kids a minute to breathe. Like, we don't have to jump straight into the music. Like, let's just build relationships, connect, breathe. Like, it was a long year for all of us last year. Like, the learning, the amount of learning that we quote unquote lost, I can't find a proper term right now. Y'all, we'll get there. We'll make up for it eventually. But right now, these kids just need to be kids. They need to socialize with their friends who they probably haven't been really able to socialize with over the past year like they wanted to. Like, let them babies come into your room and breathe.
My first day back, when we can really sing in person again. First of all, we're going to do Tell Me Something Good so I can learn their names and learn how to pronounce them properly, because that's a thing too. And then we are just going to love on each other because I have missed my babies. So we're just going to love on each other. I never pass out music day one. I never do that. I always take time to get to know them. I want to know what happened over the summer. I'm nosy as a choir director, so I want to know what's going on. I am very nosy. I want to know what's going on, and I also I want you to get to know me, and so we're gonna talk about all the things, and I'm gonna love on you, and that's what we're gonna do. But I'm definitely learning names day one because that's what I always do. That makes me feel good.
And learn their names and say it correctly, people. That's the one, if you can't get within, like saying their names correctly is what one, an educator should do. And two, that's the least and most respectful thing you can do for anyone. Learn their names and say it correctly, please.
Anybody else?
Chantae, what you doing day one?
Girl, tell me something good. But no, we really are. We really are. And some ear training games. We always play games and things of that nature. But it's going to be a lot of heavy stuff going on with the SEL. If you haven't read this book, you can't see. Oh wait. If you haven't read this book or its corresponding book that just came out, Music Education and Social Emotional Learning, The Heart of Teaching Music by Scott Editor. You should definitely take a look at that. It comes with a workbook that has a bunch of social emotional activities that you can do in the music classroom. And we all know social emotional learning generally is what we do as music educators, but with the craziness of last year, the trauma and PTSD that we all have endured from last year, we're going to have to be a little bit more deliberate with the things that we do with our students. But yes, definitely playing some get to know you games, making sure that I know how to say all my babies' names. I got a lot of a good population of Latinx students, and I'm always like, okay, so say your name for me, say your last name too. And just making sure that you're respecting them, because you might be the only teacher in the entire building who even cares to get the name right. And so, like Jasmine was saying, just getting to know their names and asking for them to pronounce their name means a lot. I've had a student literally went 3 months into the school year, and I heard one of her friends call her name. And I was like, why you been letting me say your name wrong this whole time? I was like, for someone, especially whose name is not pronounced the way that it's spelled, thanks, Dad. That means a lot. I was like, that's your name. That's your name. It's important. Make sure that people not only meet, but make sure everybody says it correctly. But yeah, building those relationships, man, and just getting ready to have a fantastic year. So
I forgot to tell you, Dr. Pittman, that I PA'd your name. I'll send it to you. I went and looked it up.
okay.
I got out my diction book and made sure that I had perfectly. I was correct the first time I did it, but I'll send you a picture of it when we hang up. Sorry.
And encourage your students to correct you every single time. Like give them that right to do it, and tell them, it empower them to tell other people how to correctly pronounce their name. Like make them say it right every single time. But anywho, Miss Howard, what are you doing on your first day?
Oh, okay. So on my first day, don't know where I'll be somewhere in there. And if I'm doing elementary, then I'll do. So it's kind of my little layout of what I always do. I do some big to do with how y'all doing, and of course they're like, and but then we do a name game, and I hand them a stick that's like the name stick, and anytime throughout the rest of the lesson, after we do the name game, they pass it to whoever they want to pass it to. They try to do it without my knowing, and that person raised the stick name, and I have to call their name out. I have to say what their name is. So it's a game for me, and they enjoy it because they try to hide who they're sending it to, so I can't practice before that person gets the stick. And I'll do that, and I do on the first day with all of my classes the honesty circle, where I introduce myself and my intent for ourselves in the class, and sort of lay the foundation for that this is the safe space. And then I end with some sort of upbeat, something to where I'm getting in trouble because everybody's kids is singing and dancing and following instead of walking straight away. So that's what I was doing on my first day.
All the fun. You guys are sharing all the fun. Okay, last time around the circle, the listener, one thing that really matters from these 2 episodes, this is a double episode series thing here. What is the one thing you want the listener to walk away with? And you have to pass it to the next person. Whoever goes first, you're going to kick it off. So who's going first?
Okay, I'll go first. I think from these 2 recordings, it is important overall to show your students that you are, that you can make a mistake, that you get things wrong sometimes, and that you are a person who is going to love them and be a safe space for them to be able to grow as a person and as a musician. So many times we get in the classroom and we just want to teach musicians. Well, we have to have a person behind the musician. And we are in charge of teaching those young people how to be people, no matter whether they're in elementary school, middle school, or high school. In elementary school, you do a lot more, I think, of the character building and helping them develop the, different things. And, in middle school, they're trying to really establish themselves. And, high school, they think they know, and you have to remind them that there's still a world out there that will eat us alive. But here's some tools that you can have to survive. So it is important and to be human, no matter where you are, no matter where you go, and also to know your students.
Who are you passing it to, Miss Howard?
I am passing it to Jasmine.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting you to call on me. Just kidding. So I made it pretty clear that joy is very important within your classroom, but something else I want to highlight outside of the students, y'all, if 2020 hasn't taught us anything, I know for certain that self-care has been one of the things that have been in the forefront. Self-care will allow you to not only take care of yourself, but be the best teacher that you can be, because you can't pour from an empty well whatsoever. So take time to yourself, work out, meditate, journal, have hard cutoffs. That is something that I've had to learn over my 6 going on 7 years of teaching. Like, as music educators, we take things home, we're rehearsing, we're conducting in the mirror, we're getting trips together, we're trying to figure out, okay, what professional developments are we taking? What performance opportunities can we take? Oh, this came up last minute. Let me see if I can get or rally my kids to perform. Like, have hard cutoffs when you get home. Try not to take any work home with you. And set your boundaries. You do not have to say yes to everything. You do not have to say yes to everything, because at the end of the day, your program will be there, but your family and y'all need, they need you the most. So make sure that you're self-caring and putting yourself first, because you cannot pour from an empty well.
Who's she passing to?
Maria.
Love covers a multitude of flaws. Love, 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 love. If you love your students, that will help you in how you teach. It will help you in your shortcomings, because everything that you do will be done in love. So I challenge every educator who listens to this episode to lead with love. If we lead with love, then teaching everybody's history would not be, you won't have any problems with it. If you lead with love, the social emotional learning and all that kind of stuff, you won't have a problem with it, because you'll find the ways to make sure that that person feels seen and to make sure that everybody feels loved. I'll also say that when in doubt, ask somebody, because there's so many people who will help you. All of us want to be the best that we can be. And all of us have things that we are not 100% confident in. And that does not make us bad people or bad educators. There are some things that I can do like that. And there are some things that I know I got to sit down and ask some questions. So when in doubt, ask. What all of us on this call will help you with that. But if you're leading with love, then you won't have any problem asking, because you'll ask in love, and that person will receive that in love, and they'll assist you as well. I will pass it to Dr. Chantae Pittman.
All of the ladies, sorry, my dog is doing some crazy stuff. All of the ladies really have hit it on the head. I would probably just want to say to all of the educators listening, just to make sure that you are aware of what's going on, not only within your students' life, not only within your life, but also within the world. There are things, there are people that are change agents in this world that are doing some great things. And we have to be cognizant of those things and how they're affecting not only our students, but ourselves. Jasmine mentioned self-care. Learn how to say no. Don't wait until you burn out to take a rest, because my mom always says, if you don't take a rest, your body will make you. But also continue to remember that we've come far in our journey in America, and that's just in general beyond music. But we have a lot of things that we have to make sure that we decolonize within ourselves, within our teaching practices, within the thoughts that we have, the internal and implicit biases that we have amongst, other different cultures and different things that carry weight. And once we are able to get through those, then we can really start to see that joy and present that joy for our students. So, yeah. Yay!
Thank you all for being willing to open your boundaries and say yes to this panel. This has been so much fun. 2-part series of such an amazing conversation. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you for being on the show. There you have it. The end of this really incredible 2-part episode featuring a panel of dynamite educators. I hope you take a second right now and follow all of them on their social media platforms. And like they said, fun, love, authentic, and ask. I can't wait to see what you do in this upcoming school year. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It is an absolute honor to be your host, and just the biggest, huge hug of gratitude to these ladies for giving their time to share and be on this panel with me today. Well, today and last week. Anyway. Whatever you are doing, my friend, you matter. I hope that you feel so seen. We all know that music matters, and I will see you next time on the Music Ed Matters podcast.